Most founders believe the reason that growth feels harder as the business gets bigger is because they're doing something wrong, that they've lost focus, that their team isn't strong enough, or that the market has somehow changed. But in most cases, none of that is true. What's actually happening is much simpler and much more dangerous. The business has crossed a threshold it was never designed to handle, and instead of scaling, it's straining. I'm Justin Kaiser, and over the last 24 years building businesses, with a recent exit of my franchise brand to a publicly traded company and working with founders, franchisors, and investors, I've learned that almost every scaling problem shows up long after the real mistake was made. Because businesses don't break at the moment of poor design, they break later. And when pressure is applied, pressure always exposes structure. Early growth hides design flaws because the founder compensates for them. They make fast decisions, step in when something goes wrong, smooth over inconsistencies, and use personal effort as glue. But effort does not scale. It only delays the moment when the system is forced to stand on its own. And that moment arrives quietly. It shows up as more questions need approval, as more fires that feel unnecessary, more meetings that don't create clarity, more people waiting instead of acting. And founders often misdiagnose this phase as a leadership or motivation issue. But it's not. It's an architecture issue. The business is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is depend on the founder. And that dependence is invisible until growth magnifies it. This is why so many founders say things like, I don't understand why this feels so hard now, or we're doing more revenue than ever, but it feels less stable, or I can't step away without things slowing down. Those statements are signals. They're telling you that the business has outgrown its original operating model. And the dangerous part is that many founders respond by pushing harder instead of redesigning. They hire more people without clarifying roles. They add locations without strengthening systems. They pursue new revenue streams without stabilizing the core. And every one of those moves adds weight to a structure that's already strained. Growth then becomes something the business survives instead of something it thrives from. This distinction matters enormously for founders who want to franchise or attract capital, because franchisees and investors are not betting on today's performance. They're betting on tomorrow's predictability. They're asking whether results are repeatable, whether decision-making is distributed, whether standards are enforced by systems instead of personalities, and whether success depends on a specific individual or a design that can function without them. A business that only works when the founder is involved is not scalable, it's fragile. And fragility is what investors and experienced operators are trained to detect. This is why so many businesses with strong demand fail to scale responsibly. Demand proves the market wants the product. It says nothing about whether the business can grow without breaking. Replication without structure multiplies inconsistency, not success. And inconsistency erodes trust faster than almost anything else, with customers, with employees, with franchisees, and with investors. Real scale requires a shift in how founders think about their role. Early on, the founder is the engine. Later, the founder must become the architect. Engines create motion. Architects create systems that produce motion reliably. And that transition is uncomfortable because it requires founders to stop being the hero, to stop solving every problem personally, and to start designing frameworks that others operate within. That means documenting what used to live in instinct, turning judgment into process, turning exceptions into rules, and turning critical knowledge into systems. This is where many founders hesitate, because clarity removes options, and having options feels safe. But safety doesn't create leverage. Focus does. Scale rewards elimination. Elimination of growth paths that don't align with the end vision. And founders who avoid these eliminations often find themselves stuck in a permanent state of almost scalable, almost ready to franchise, almost ready for investment, almost able to step away. And almost is one of the most expensive places to live because it feels responsible while quietly producing stagnation. The businesses that scale cleanly make these decisions earlier. They don't wait for pain to force clarity. They design before pressure arrives. They ask different questions, such as, what breaks if we grow faster? Or why does this keep happening? Or how does this work without me? Those questions change everything because they shift the business from reaction to intention, from dependence to leverage, and from effort to design. At Empire Franchising, this is the work that we focus on. We don't chase growth just for growth's sake. We help strong local businesses become scalable franchise platforms, and we help existing franchisors rebuild the architecture required to grow cleanly. Because when a business is designed properly, growth stops feeling chaotic. Decision-making speeds up instead of slowing down, and standards rise instead of slipping, and the founder regains control instead of losing it. The goal isn't to remove the founder from the business, it's to remove the business's dependence on the founder. And that distinction is everything, because when dependence is removed, scale becomes possible, investment becomes logical, and the business becomes an asset instead of a burden that simply got bigger. If you're listening to this and recognizing your own business in these patterns, if growth feels heavier instead of freer, or if decisions bottleneck around you, or if you're not really sure whether your business is actually designed to scale, that's exactly what we work through in our growth strategy sessions. This isn't a sales call, it's a working session where we look at your business honestly and we assess the architecture beneath it. And then we identify what needs to be built next so that growth creates leverage instead of stress. If you want clarity on whether your business is designed to scale or how to redesign it so it is, schedule a growth strategy session with us. Go to empirefranchising.com and click the button there to schedule that session. That conversation alone can change the trajectory of your whole entire business.